Welcome back. A quick reminder to subscribe to Breaking the Internet podcast on all platforms. And before we get started, an ad read. Are zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks keeping you up at night? You're not alone, and there's a solution that might help. ThreatLocker.
Think of ThreatLocker as your proactive security partner. Instead of waiting for threats to appear, it works on the deny by default principle, meaning it blocks everything unless your team specifically approves it. This way, you can be sure that every action, process, and user is tightly controlled. Plus, ThreatLocker provides a complete audit trail of what's been allowed or blocked, which is great for managing risk and staying compliant.
One standout feature is ring fencing, which prevents applications from becoming weaponized by restricting how they interact with each other. This ensures that even if a threat tries to exploit an application, it can't affect other parts of your system.
Their US-based support team is here to help you every step of the way, from getting started to keeping things running smoothly. By using ThreatLocker, you can protect your organization from ransomware and ensure that your trusted applications remain secure and efficient.
Companies like JetBlue already rely on ThreatLocker to keep their data safe and their operations running smoothly. If you want to learn more about how ThreatLocker can safeguard your organization and ensure compliance, check out threatlocker.com. That's threatlocker.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Breaking the Internet podcast. I am She Networks, and we are here with Ending with Ali.
Hello.
And in this episode, we are going to be talking about something that we had mentioned in a previous episode, and it is the epidemic of British teenage hackers. And we're here to absolutely get to the bottom of what's going on with all of the British teenage hackers, right, Ali?
Absolutely. Why? Why are they so bored that they commit crime?
That's my running theory at this point. But I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the culture. I do have some good examples here of recent and semi-recent examples of teenage British hackers running amok. Geez, I can't talk today. Anyway, so we have a 17-year-old English hacker involved in the MGM ransomware attack. They were arrested. Now, I will make a disclaimer that some of these people have been prosecuted. Some of them are awaiting trial. So I don't have any names, though. That's kind of another problem with researching these hackers, is that I was like, I'm not sure if this is the same person as this other article is referring to, because it'll be two different hacks, but it's literally like 17-year-old. And then sometimes they'll have kind of like the location that they were living. But, you know, it can get confusing. I feel like we need to have some type of identification system when they're not releasing names of these people, so that we can kind of like keep them straight, you know? So the 17-year-old was arrested for the MGM ransomware attack. We have a 16-year-old hacker arrested for breaking into the CIA director John Brennan's AOL account, and was also rumored to be linked to the DOJ hack, which resulted in the publication of names and contact information of almost 30,000 FBI and DHS employees. We have a 17-year-old arrested for hack on Twilio, LastPass, MailChimp. We have a 17-year-old arrested for the hack on Uber and the Grand Theft Auto hack, also possibly related to the NVIDIA hack. And then we have an 18-year-old arrested for a denial of service for hire. And then, of course, probably the most notable was Malware Tech. Even though he was arrested as an adult, I'm pretty sure most of his crimes were while he was a teenager. So that's a good list so far. A lot of the ones that I previously mentioned are all pretty recent. Now, to discuss this, we do have a guest on this episode, our residential British expert, Tiberius. And welcome, Tibs. Thanks for joining us to kind of talk about, you know, why this might be happening.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Let's get to the bottom of this.
I'm more curious, Tibs, when did you decide to get into hacking, cybersecurity, InfoSec as a concept? As a teenager, perhaps?
I mean, I was probably a late bloomer in that respect. I'm pretty sure I was 19 when I really got into I would decide to go to do like computer science at university. And it was at university that I really sort of started getting into the hacking side of things. The I'd done like programming as a teenager, like, 13, 14. I guess you can call it hacking. I would like modify video game save files. So I would, next time I loaded the game, I would have extra money, that kind of stuff. So technically hacking, I guess. And I'm pretty sure, like, when I was like 16 or 17, that hack this site was a big thing. I probably tried some stuff there, but I didn't really seriously get into it until I was like, probably 19 or 20.
And so where did you end up going to university?
So I went to a place called Royal Holloway, and you'll definitely want to Google it because it's basically a castle. When I've shown people this on stream before, everyone screams Hogwarts. Yeah, it is. It's a quintessentially very, very British-looking university. So yeah, I went to Royal Holloway. It's a university of London, but it's basically the only one that's not actually in London for some reason.
How do you run Ethernet cables through a castle? I would imagine that's kind of difficult because of like the stone,
That's so
great
true.
difficulty.
How was the Wi-Fi?
Was it bad?
The castle actually is mostly some student dorms.
Even more.
I never actually lived in the castle. So I actually lived in other modern buildings that had proper internet and proper Ethernet cabling.
I'm just thinking terrible cell service, in a castle, I would imagine. It seems like a nightmare, logistically.
For sure.
Interesting. And so when you went to college, what did you study? Or university? Or I don't know. What do you call it over there?
It's university
Uni.
over there. But for some reason, like, the universities are sometimes called colleges. Like, there's University College London, which, makes no sense, right? So, yeah, I studied computer science. I originally went to study computer science, and then at the end of, like, the first year, they were like, hey, in your second year, you can, like, take what I guess in America we call a minor in something. And information security was one of those. And I went to the sort of, the lecture where they said, hey, this is what the information security course is going to be on. And that looked interesting. So in the second and third year, I was doing basically a minor in information security. And then I stayed to do a further year master's program. In information, just straight information security.
Nice. So one of my questions is, as far as, obviously we have our 3-letter agencies in the US, and at, UK, they have their own set of agencies, and they seem, I guess, pretty effective at locating and identifying these hackers that are involved in these hacks. I remember when the Uber hacker was posting screenshots on Twitter, and I was like live looking at the updates, and they weren't like cropping out anything at all. And the whole time I was like, this just looks so sloppy. So I feel like that one probably was easy to kind of identify. But I'm assuming they also probably do work with like the US authorities, but again, they seem pretty good about finding people. So do you have any kind of like insight into how that works, or maybe how it's different from what we do in the US?
Yeah, so I guess the US has basically the NSA, and our equivalent, I should say our equivalent, the UK equivalent, I'm American now, is the GCHQ, which... yeah, it effectively is the NSA for the UK. I think there's a bunch of things. I think historically, the UK has always been, especially in the era of technology, quite a surveillance state. I was literally just there like last week and driving around. The amount of speed cameras and CCTV compared to like the US is insane. I could drive, I live in Massachusetts, I could drive the length of Massachusetts and basically never see a speed camera. You occasionally see a cop, right? But like in the UK, it's like speed cameras everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think in the US too, some states, it's like illegal, the speed cameras. So I know in Texas, there are speed cameras. Yeah. But if you get a ticket from the speed camera, okay, this is not legal advice. Don't take my word for it. But if you get a ticket from the speed camera, there's nothing that happens if you don't pay it. Yeah. They're not really enforceable here.
Yeah. So I think it might be that the UK just has more of this surveillance state sort of, I don't know, ability that's been developed over, we're talking decades. And that's probably helps because I imagine, I think it also helps that, in the US you have 50 separate states, and the UK you just have effectively just one centralized government. There are technically governments in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, but for the most part, it's not. I feel like states generally have a more freedom, and more the ability to govern their citizens closely, I guess, than the UK does.
Do you feel like teenagers in the UK specifically target US companies and entities because they want to be edgy, and they say they do it because the UK lost the Revolutionary War?
I think that's probably part of it, Ali. I think you may have something there.
I really do.
Go to any teenager in the UK and you talk to them for 5 minutes.
Are they bitter about it?
They will bring up the Revolutionary War. Like they're still not over it.
Is the Revolutionary War the Roman Empire?
Pretty much.
Yes.
I think we do not. I mean, put it this way: we really don't learn about the Revolutionary War in history classes in the UK. As far as I can recollect, everything I learned was probably just through propaganda that's broadcast, every Saturday night on the TV. So,
yes, of course.
Now, do you know much about the kind of culture around hacking in the UK? I know here we have obviously a ton of conferences. I know those exist over there. There's groups. There's even kind of more private hacking groups. So what do you know about like the culture there?
Yeah, it is interesting. I think conventions and that kind of stuff is. I hesitate to say it's a very uniquely American thing. I think Americans take conventions a lot more, I guess, liberally. So there's just a lot more conventions over here, and it's completely disproportionate. There are definitely some conventions in the UK, but just the amount of them, especially in cybersecurity, I would say is quite low. There are definitely in the bigger cities there are meetup groups. Like when I lived in London, there was technically a DEF CON meetup group every month, I think, but it wasn't that big. For a city the size of London, we're talking about maybe 30 to 40 people who would show up. So and London is practically equivalent size of New York City.
Yeah, that's a lot for like 40 people to show up. Seems not as prevalent. I guess, Ali, do you have questions?
Tibs, you're online a lot. You're doing a lot of content. You are pretty active, and I'm super curious. So you do like mentorship. You do Cyber Mentor Monday, which if you don't know, Tibs, Serena, and I are all like really good friends outside of just like the content creation aspect of things. Like, I will say Tibs is also, and I'll talk anyone's ear off about this, like Tibs is genuinely one of the most like nicest, genuine people in the InfoSec space, and has just always been someone who's advocated like properly and just like for everyone and anyone, regardless of who they are, which is just like, you don't see a lot of people just like so straightforward talking actively about that. And I think that that's just like a really big, like we need more people like you in this space who are more proactive and as loud as you are about just the right thing. Does that make sense? You don't see a lot of people talk about that.
It's very kind to say. Personally, I just see it. Yeah, it's honestly, it's not anything huge. It's just honestly just doing what I think the right thing to do is. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think it's like the authenticity. So especially being kind of in the content creator space, you will meet content creators that are all about pushing content that's going to reach like the max amount of people, right? And you get sometimes these clickbait videos or things like that, but you always kind of really keep it on the subject matter. Like you're not trying to, at least from my perspective, it doesn't seem like you're trying to go mega viral and really like appeal to the masses. Like you are making content for people who are genuinely interested in learning about these topics.
Yeah, it always rubs me the wrong way when I see, that kind of content. And granted, sure, it works for some people, and if that's what you want to do, I'm not gonna judge you for it. But like, that's just not how I operate personally. I'd find it extremely hard to create that kind of content. I think
It is hard.
I'm more of like a matter of fact person. I just want to, spit facts and and that's it. Like a lot of the feedback from some of my courses, like I made privilege escalation courses, God, like 5 years ago now. But they're like, they're about an hour and a half each, and a lot of people, that's not that long, but at the same time, it's just me, teaching the facts that you need to know and teaching the skills. There's no like waffling, and a lot of people appreciate that, I know. So you get a lot of courses these days which I feel like put content in there just to increase the length, and it's not actually really teaching anything. It's more just padding, and I've never been a fan of that because honestly, it feels wrong to put it in there. It also just it takes more time to do anyway, so I don't understand like why you would even like it seems like a waste of time for the creator as well as the person watching. So for me, it's more like, hey, if I can create a course that's short and contains all the information you need, that's great. Like it doesn't need to be 10 hours to teach something quite simple.
Yeah.
What got you into content creation in the first place?
So yeah, that's a great question. So I did the OSCP very late in my career. We're talking, I never really needed it. When I entered the industry, I tell this a lot, especially when people ask, like, how did you get into the industry? Like, what are your tips? And I'm like, I'm the wrong person to ask. That's part of the reason why I created an interview series about getting into cybersecurity. Because when I was getting into cybersecurity, you could basically trip and fall into it. And that's pretty much what I did. I graduated university, and I just applied for a junior pen test role, and I think after the third application, I got a job. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. I didn't have any experience.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah. So that, I think, is basically, I managed to just coast, I guess, based on just experience. And yeah, 7 years into pen testing, like my boss came to me and was like, hey, we've got like extra training budget. Do you want to just do the OSCP? Like at that point I was a senior pen tester, so there was no point in me having it, but he was basically saying, hey, it'll look good to have it anyway. We've also got extra money. I was like, sure, let's do it. So I was doing that, and I found a Discord server for current students of the OSCP. And joined that, started helping out. Everyone kind of helped each other out on that server. We weren't like sharing answers or anything, but we were mostly just like giving hints to certain boxes in the lab, and just supporting each other. And I was made an admin of that Discord at some point. I forget when. But then people were like just asking, because the OSCP doesn't really teach everything you need to know to do the exam. That's kind of one of the things about it, is it encourages a lot of self-learning, but that's kind of silly for a cert.
That drives me
I feel
nuts. I like really have beef with exams like that, right? Because it's like, oh, you're supposed to just guess, and I'm like, okay, well, if you tell me what I should be learning,
Right.
I will learn those things. But yeah, there's quite a few exams that are like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and one of the things that the OSCP just didn't teach anything was privilege escalation. And privilege escalation was a big part of the exam. And so we had a lot of people asking, hey, how do I find, information on privilege escalation? And I was thinking, well, I've done privilege escalation in my career. I could probably put some courses together. And that's pretty much how that started. So the courses really came first. I created a YouTube channel to just, do random other videos. One of my friends started streaming, and that's how I got into streaming, because he was basically saying, hey, there's a growing cybersecurity community on Twitch. And yes, that's how I got into streaming, and it kind of just ballooned from there, honestly.
I have a question, speaking of certs, and now you two probably will have better answers for this. I would love a definitive ranking, and I would love to hear you two debate this, a definitive ranking of the usefulness of popular certs. Like, what's the most S tier certs you should get to the most like F tier certs you should get?
I think that
in
is
pen
hard.
testing?
You both do pen testing, so pen testing, let's go. Definitive ranking and debate it.
I don't actually have any pen testing certs. All my certs are
I don't either.
networking.
But you at least know about them.
I mean, CEH comes last. I think there's just no debate there. So
Yeah, that seems to. I guess I don't know. Was the CEH like popular before, and then it wasn't? I feel like there's a lot of bad vibes when you bring up like the CEH and the cybersecurity community, and I haven't been in the cybersecurity community as long as most. So
yeah, I don't think it was ever good. What I think it was it had hacking in the name, right? And it was a cert that existed, I believe, before OSCP even. And so what happened was it was realistically one of the only certs out there for hacking. So that somehow, just the magic name of certified ethical hacker made its way into HR departments, hiring managers' brains, and sort of just stuck there. And yeah, so I don't think it was ever good. I've seen old pages of CEH materials with they just have lies on them. Like it's maybe
Wow.
lies is too much of a word. Misinformation, just stuff that's wrong. Just clearly wrong, and they just haven't edited. And yeah, so it was just that, and also the company behind it is kind of shady. There's a lot of plagiarism on their blog, especially that I know about.
Yeah, I do remember instances
yeah.
of that happening.
Yeah, so it's a lot of things, but the fact of the matter is it's a cert that's still popular because it exists. It's on the list of the DoD's approved certs for cybersecurity. But then again, getting on the DoD's list doesn't necessarily mean you're a good cert.
Yeah.
It just means you've been there for a while, and I don't know. I think it just has a bad reputation, to be honest.
Okay, so that's your F tier. What's your D tier certs?
You're talking like two people who really don't have that many certs. That's the issue.
But you know about them.
Yeah. D tier, I guess maybe Pentest Plus. Like it's okay. It's not
CompTIA Plus certs.
Yeah, the CompTIA Plus certs, exactly. Like it's another one where it's okay, I guess. Maybe D tier is a bit harsh. Maybe it's more C.
Okay, we'll go FCBAS. We'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then what's your so the Pentest Plus.
Yeah.
Why?
I guess again because I haven't taken it. This is just what I've heard from people. It's just it's not that good of a cert. It's in terms of the actual. It's worth something on a resume, I guess, maybe, but I just don't think it's really that challenging. So it doesn't really test skills that well. The INE certs, I would say, are probably B to C tier. They, some of their stuff, like the senior versions of their certs are pretty good, I feel. The X one, yeah. So the WAPTX, that's the web app Extreme. I think it's X is for Extreme. I don't know, maybe. Those I think are a little bit better. So they may be pushing into actually B tier. And then A. I think I'm going to merge A and S tier because honestly I don't think there are any S tier certs. So let's just call it A tier. And I think you've got to throw the OSCP in there just because even though I don't really like the OSCP as, in terms of what they're doing with the course. I think the exam is still okay, and it does at least. I don't agree with the exam being 24 hours, but it does involve
24
actual
hours.
pen testing techniques. Yeah, it's 24 hours, and then you get another 24 hours to write the report. It's insane. That's
You don't have to
But-
sit there for 24 hours. You just
No.
have to complete it in 24 hours.
yeah.
Oh God. Okay, I thought that you have a window of 24 hours to complete it, but how long does the OSCP actually take to do?
It depends on
I
how
did
good
it in
you
9
are.
hours.
You did it in 9 hours?
Yeah.
How long did your write-up take?
My write-up, so you get the next day for write-up. I think my write-up was like 6. But I had to I spent a lot of time on the report because I didn't want to screw it up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I think I timed myself. I was at 9 hours.
Oh my God.
But like other people have done it in like 5 or 4. So, it's not anything special. And it's not about that. It's, some people take really long breaks, which is fine. I just wanted to knock it all out.
Yeah. Be done with it.
Yeah, if we're on A tier, we always have to mention PMPT. The TCM certs are very good. They
You
are
also
definitely more
worked
realistic.
there.
Yeah, but I don't work there anymore. But I still think the certs are really good.
Yeah.
They actually put a lot of effort into them, and they try and make them as realistic as possible. And they also teach everything you need to complete the exam. So that's really good. And then obviously for web app testing, we have the Burp Suite, the Burp Suite Pro exam, which I
mean,
cannot remember what it is actually called. And then Hack the Box have also got their certified. I think they got certified bug bounty hunter, certified pen tester. They've got some good exams too. So I feel like there's quite a good number of companies at the top that are doing good certs right now. I just don't know how to rank them, especially as again, I haven't done many of these exams, so it would be unfair of me to try and rank a lot of exams which I haven't just done. But yeah, that's my general feelings on the subject.
I feel like as a pen tester, you should just try and take the exams and see what happens. I know they cost money, but just make a
I could
video
do it
out
for
of
content.
it. Literally make a video out of it. Be like, I took the X exam without studying as a professional pen tester. Here's how I did.
I did that with the Security Plus. I took the Security Plus and I only gave myself 24 hours to study. And yeah, but I already had a lot of experience as a network engineer. So you learn a lot about security in that field as well.
Did you pass?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I passed.
I don't
Yeah,
have
it's
any
interesting.
certs.
Like that's my thing is it would be a waste of my time. I feel like.
Yeah.
And I don't need at this point. I don't need the certs. This is why I tell people a lot. Certs are great when you're early in your career and you don't have anything. But as soon as you have 3 years of experience, honestly, you don't need any certs anymore.
Yeah, I'm letting all mine expire.
Yeah.
So I was
The
like,
only
I'm done with it. It's so much to keep up with at this point, and it's just it ends up just being a time and money suck ultimately. And then you're when you are 3-4 years into your career, it's you're kind of specializing in a specific area. For the OSCP is great, all that. Or I don't do a lot of web app testing in my work. I do a lot of network heavy stuff. And then do some web app, but I just kind of want to focus on my niche. And sometimes certs are very broad, which is beneficial for someone who's early in their career.
Yeah, and I was going to mention obviously not all certs are useless at later stages in your career, especially if you're going to specialize. Then there are certs obviously usually come with a course that's going to teach you stuff. So especially if you're going into more advanced areas and you want to study, some more advanced stuff, then absolutely do the courses, get the certs if you want. But yeah, I feel like the low level certs like CEH, OSCP, PMPT, the kind of stuff that's hey, this is a base level pen test cert. That stuff you don't need 3. If you've already got 3 years of pen testing under your belt, there's no point.
I don't know. You do the cyber mentoring stuff, so I was just like, I feel like you have opinions, and I feel like that's also just this is just free content. You could literally make a tier list and rank them, and just give the most edgy opinions about the certs, and then get zero, get everyone mad,
I feel
get
like that would
everyone mad,
require taking all of them, though.
which is
Yeah.
other content you could do.
Maybe we'll see.
How does the culture in England respond to like hacking or view hackers? How is the media kind of present them versus maybe what they're presented as in the US, and how does like the local population kind of respond to that?
Yeah, I think it's quite similar, and I mean, so you've also got to remember, like, I grew up in the era of like where the internet was, already pretty popular. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stories like come from the US, and we see all of that kind of stuff. So, like, I think back in if we're talking like the 90s, then I'm sure hacking was seen as far more dangerous and illegal,
Mm-hmm.
especially since I'm pretty sure the Computer Misuse Act, which is the main computer like hacking law in the UK, it's so badly written, and I don't know if it's changed. Honestly, I haven't really concerned myself with UK law for 10 years, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I know in
America's
the
is
US,
terrible too.
well, the US, they have changed a lot. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was at ShmooCon earlier this year, and they had people from the Justice Department there who were, talking about how they'd done updates to certain laws to make, security research, legitimate security research, legal. Like it's more about, if you have an attitude of we're doing this to make sure things are secure rather than we're just trying to hack into everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about intent. But yeah, I think hacking is. I'm not really sure. I think it's kind of the same as how it's viewed in the US. Like there are still people who are surprised by the concept of ethical hacking. But I feel like it's gotten more mainstream for sure.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a lot of teenagers are getting roped into this, and I don't think that's necessarily a new concept, right? I mean, since teenagers started getting computers, that's been a thing. But it seems, like I said, I don't know, it just seems particularly dominant there. And I wonder if that is because, as we had mentioned kind of at the beginning of the episode, it's like this boredom aspect where they're like just spending a lot of time online and meeting friends online and getting into these communities. But I'm always interested to know like what people's spark into hacking is, how, because you have to kind of stumble upon it in some way, right? And I think a lot of people maybe stumble upon it when they're trying to be like, okay, like what do I want to do as a job to make money? But when you're 15, 16, 17, it's like, where are these kids being radicalized into, unethical hacking? It's like Roblox, maybe, I don't know.
Roblox.
And it could be like the game hacking is like a gateway where they are trying to find game cheats and different things like that.
Yeah, it might be actually. It definitely could be. It's going to be interesting actually looking in over the next 10 years because of bug bounty programs.
Mm-hmm.
Like bug bounty, 10 years ago was practically non-existent. But now it's a legitimate entry into the industry. And I feel like it's probably going to, at least I hope, it's going to hook some of those, the same kids who may have, got into hacking and done illegal stuff. It may hook them, put them on the right path and start, well, actually, you don't have to do illegal stuff. You can do bug bounty hunting. You can practice your skills. You can get it better as a hacker. And you can also sometimes make money.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my hope. And that's why, I think bug bounty programs are great. Because they're giving that access where previously we just didn't have it. Like coming into the industry, we literally, when I was doing hacking, when I came into the industry, it was on sites like Hack This Site, which, isn't that good. It was on, there were a few practice VMs that you could download and do, and that's basically it. So there really isn't anything.
Could you explain bug bounty hunting to people who might not be familiar with the concept?
Sure. Yeah, so the idea is you have these effectively sites that you can register on as a company or organization. You can list any like domains, IP addresses, mobile apps that you own as a company, and you can basically say, hey, here are some pretty standard rules about what we want you to do or what you should avoid, but you can basically try and hack these assets. And if you find something, you can report it and we'll pay you money. And some of the programs don't pay. They're just there. A lot of like charities, for example, will use the free programs because they just don't have the money. But it's mostly for people who, want to be a good Samaritan and hack and find bugs and make the internet more secure. But a lot of the big companies will pay. They can pay quite a lot of money for bugs. So it's realistically, it's legal. It's a legal way to hack things that aren't yours. Which obviously in the past, like if we're talking like, when I entered the industry, you could potentially go and hack a site and then find the webmaster email and email them and say, hey, I found a vulnerability, and that, you're technically being ethical. You shouldn't really have been hacking it in the first place, let's be clear, but you're being ethical because you're reporting it. But that could go badly for you if that webmaster decides to get the police involved, right? That's, potentially a jail sentence, even though you had good intentions. So the idea,
and that has been an issue in the past, where people have tried to responsibly report a vulnerability that they had found, and it did blow up in their face, basically. And so I think that there is kind of this hesitation now within the cybersecurity community where if they find stuff, they don't want to report it, because it's now there is a little bit more protection with the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, where intent really matters when you are, finding it on these websites, because a lot of the bugs that I have found have been just accidentally, like stumbling upon them. And I did that with like my utility company. I did that with like a gym that I had signed up for, where, there was a way to like very easily do an account takeover. And, sometimes it's like you want to do the right thing because, one, it's like, well, they have my personal information, so I would prefer that to be secure. But then other times, like you don't know how they're going to react to that. And finding a way to even report those vulnerabilities can be difficult. As you had said, some companies or even charities, they do have at least a reporting way where maybe they're not giving you money for finding these vulnerabilities, but there is a way to submit, a report so that they can take care of that issue. But then other companies, it's near impossible to figure out, how you would submit this as an issue. And if you like call their customer service or pick up an email or find an email and shoot them off, information related to it, you don't know who is going to get it, and if they're just going to kind of like delete, like I don't know what that I don't know what that's about, and maybe even think you're like a crazy person. I don't know. They're just like, if you don't know anything about hacking, cybersecurity, or bug bounty programs, it might be weird to be like, why is this person saying that they're hacking our website? Like, so that's definitely an issue.
Yeah, for sure.
I do wonder, back to your kind of point at the beginning where you had said that hopefully bug bounties gives these teenagers, adolescents, a way to ethically, use their skills and learn. I do wonder how far that will go, because it does seem that in a lot of these cases where we are seeing teenagers kind of get in trouble, they are really executing social engineering attacks. So it's not even this kind of deep dive, technical thing that they're doing. A lot of these teenagers are affiliated with maybe groups like Scattered Spider, who, if I am recalling correctly, they really just did the initial access into environments. Maybe they would pull some data if they can get it. They weren't a ransomware group, right? But they have worked with ransomware groups to deploy ransomware. But a lot of them are ultimately getting their initial foothold into an environment by social engineering. And when it comes to bug bounty programs, there's a lot of restrictions. And usually, I mean, I have not seen a bug bounty program that would allow someone to do any type of social engineering. So, which makes sense logistically.
There are some private ones that do.
Interesting.
The reason I know is one of my friends is a pretty active bug bounty hunter, and he was invited to basically do phishing. It was a huge like phishing campaign on a specific target, which I can't mention, but yeah, there was a lot of fun because there was a lot of it was a subset of bug bounty hunters that were doing it. Yeah. But
for these private programs too, you usually have to be invited to participate.
Yes,
so it's a much more controlled group than just kind of anybody. Because I feel like you invite kind of like the floodgates, where it's like, you probably just don't want random people holding up your customer service line trying to make money, like find an issue or something. So,
yeah, exactly. And it should be said, so obviously social engineering is a very legitimate hacking technique. It's definitely less technical. Obviously it can have some technical aspects, especially if you're doing like faking a voice for some reason. But it's called hacking humans for a reason. It's very non-technical in that sense. And that does make it, I think, slightly easier. I think you have to be and I don't want to, I have friends who are social engineers, so I'm not commenting on like skill set. It's a different level of skill. I am not a very good social engineer. Like you try and, if I'm trying to phone up someone and lie to them, I find it very, very difficult. But there are a lot of good people out there who, can act really, really well. And that's an even better skill set for social engineering. So yeah, I think it's you have these teenagers who are, I think there's almost like a blend where they're very good at the social engineering aspect and maybe slightly less good at the technical, and that might be why they're getting caught. That could be a reason. I don't know. But I think, especially with the social engineering stuff, if you've got in through social engineering, you may not be as technically capable as a hacker who gets in, by a purely technical means.
Yeah. And getting in is only one part of the equation when it comes to these hacks, right? Because once you're in, now you have to figure out, okay, what can I do? From a networking perspective, I do network pen test, right? Internal, external pen tests. You get in, maybe you have access to one user account, right? But that one user, typically in a, environment that is kind of taking some cybersecurity measures, they will have limited access, right? So you had mentioned privilege escalation before as being something that's a big part of the OSCP. And yeah, you might not have an account that has access to a lot of privileges, a lot of documents, information, things like that. It could be a very low level account, and you have to figure out, okay, well, I need to get to the juicy information, right? There needs to be a point to this hack, although sometimes we see, with scattered spiders, sometimes it's almost notoriety, although I have kind of my own theories of what's happening. Maybe from an external perspective, it looks kind of like a notoriety hack or, just hacking for the lulz, whatever. But I think they are trying to accomplish something on the back end, but it's very difficult once you're in. You have to do lateral movements through networks. You have to pivot. You have to be able to exfiltrate data. And there are, in a, again, a company that has cybersecurity measures in place, there are going to be obstacles every step of that way. And that is where the big technical components are going to be necessary, and that technical knowledge to be able to actually get information that's useful and be able to exfiltrate that data and then, potentially sell it or different things like that. And sometimes you get in an environment, and if you can't figure out how to exfiltrate the data and all you're getting is screenshots, like, it's not very efficient, and you do run the risk of, the longer you're in the environment, higher risk of you being kicked out of that environment and also leaving a trail behind you.
Yeah.
I like social engineering. Like, I don't know how people get started in it. I think it's such a fascinating avenue, but it's so specific,
I think if you have really strict parents growing up, you'll probably be really good at social engineering.
Perfect, because I am.
Yeah, I was like, my mom was a cop, so I got really good at at lying and being like, I don't know, just, whatever, trying to, bypass that, maybe your restrictions at home. Although I will say that I have done social engineering and phishing campaigns and all of that. Doing it in person is a whole different ball game than just like calling up. I've called up help desks and I've researched people and I've gotten their information. Like, there's one person, I got credentials for her account at a specific organization, and I needed more information because she had two-factor authentication configured with her account, and I needed to call help desk to say, hey, I broke my phone. It dropped in the lake or whatever, and I'm trying to move over my two-factor authentication. And they're going to ask you questions to verify, what's your birthday? What is the street you live on? What's the last four of your social security number? And so you have to really dig into who this person is and see if you can find this information through publicly available data dumps, if their information had been previously leaked in a breach. I remember I went to like her tax assessor's website and was able to get her house information and like how much she pays in taxes and when she bought her house and all this information related to that, because I needed to be able to answer these security questions. And so that, though, calling them to me is so much easier. But when you're trying to like go on site and you're trying to bypass someone like a secretary, and you have to just lie straight to their face, and if they're being really nice to you, you like don't want to deceive them, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I always feel bad, is like when someone is being nice and they are trying to do the right thing and be helpful, I'm like, oh, I feel guilty. Like, I don't want to lie to this person and then again like throw them under the bus later, where you have to write a report and be like, hey, these are the things that happen in the weaknesses that I was able to find. And so yeah, that's rough. Have you done any of that, Tibs? Have you done any on-sites?
Yeah, I've done a few. But yeah, it was always avoiding people was the key, I think. Like, if you can sneak in somewhere, and just avoid being seen.
Yeah,
that's always better. Yeah, because if you you just want to avoid actually lying to someone's face. It's so much easier if you're just doing a phishing email, because you can't see the person at the other end. They're there, but it's like, once I hit send, it's done. They'll either believe the email or they won't. But at least I'm not lying kind of directly to them. But yeah, having to do that is just it's terrifying. It's really, really horrible.
Yeah.
So I tend to prefer, when I did do like social engineering, like physical engagements, stuff like following people, through locked doors, because they badge in and they hold the door open for you. It's like, that's fine. I can do that.
Yeah. Door surfing.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like, just trying to avoid people as much as possible.
I agree. I concur for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode. I know it's a little unorthodox to talk specifically about the, crazy influx of British teenage hackers, but it's something that I always see come up and I laugh about it. And, who knows what the real mix of things that have to happen for that to occur, but it's fun talking about it. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
That's a good question. I have a link tree which you could probably display, which is probably the easiest. But
for
on
the audio
Twitter, I'm
listeners.
0x Tiberius. I'm either just Tiberius or 0x Tiberius on most things. Tiberius has a 3 instead of an E. But yeah, the link tree has links to everything. So that's usually what I use.
We'll put that in the description so people can access that. And you mostly are streaming on Twitch, correct?
I actually stream on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and Twitter simultaneously. LinkedIn. Yes, I stream on LinkedIn. But yeah, I always recommend Twitch. I just feel like Twitch is a way better streaming experience for the viewer. So I prefer, most of my viewers are on Twitch.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
Bye.